Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
I always find that going back to the Quran and really digging into these stories, it's amazing what you find.
Yeah, definitely.
So today we're going to look at the story of Miriam's mother.
Okay.
And we're going to be looking at verses 35 to 45
Right.
of Surah Ale-Imran. And, we've all heard the story before, but what I think is really fascinating is all these little details that we can unpack about intention and sacrifice and how one single person can have such an impact.
Yeah, one thing that I think is often missed in this story is thinking about the time and the context.
Yeah.
The audacity of Miriam's mother's dedication. Imagine, saying that your unborn child, sight unseen, is going to be dedicated to the service of Allah. It's basically saying, my child's path isn't mine to decide.
Right.
This is for something much greater.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And it wasn't even just a personal hope or prayer for her child. It's this radical act of faith, almost stepping outside of what society expects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where, the historical context becomes so important, right? Because we know that rabbinical scholarship was purely a male domain.
Right.
So for her to dedicate her daughter to religious service, that was basically unheard of. You know? It really challenges us to think about what dedication means for ourselves.
Yeah.
Are we willing to support our children or those that we mentor on paths that maybe we didn't expect or that go against, our own conventions.
Makes you wonder, too, if Miriam's mother had any idea of what this dedication would actually lead to, how it would play out. But I guess that's the beauty of faith, right?
Yeah.
You're surrendered to a plan that you don't fully understand.
Exactly. And then there's this other really interesting part in the verses, where Allah says the male is not like the female.
Right.
And I think sometimes people misunderstand this verse, They think it's saying that one gender is better, but that's not what it's saying at all. It's really emphasizing the inherent differences in their roles.
Right.
Not their value, in the eyes of Allah.
Yeah, that's such an important distinction to make, because it reminds me of how in Islam, men and women have different roles and responsibilities.
Right.
But our spiritual worth is completely equal.
Of course.
Everyone has their own unique contribution.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting because this kind of foreshadows Miriam's unique path, which, like you said, a man wouldn't have been able to take.
Exactly. This difference is really key here because it sets the stage for Miriam's journey. And it emphasizes that Allah had a very specific plan for her, one that was uniquely suited to her being female.
So Mary is born, and then her mother makes this other really incredible decision. She entrusts Miriam to the care of Zakariah in the temple.
Wow.
And this must have been such a hard sacrifice to make, giving up your child to fulfill this higher purpose.
Yeah, it really shows the depth of her faith. Imagine the trust that it took to completely release her child to this purpose, believing that Allah would guide and protect her.
Right.
And the verses make it very clear that Allah accepted this sacrifice. Because it came from a place of pure intention, not, for any personal gain or anything like that.
And then this is where the story takes this really interesting turn. Because while Zakariah is caring for Miriam in the temple, he starts noticing something really remarkable.
Yeah, what's that?
He finds provisions in her prayer chamber, consistently.
Oh, wow.
And this wasn't just some random thing. It really points to this idea of divine providence.
Right.
That Allah provides for those who are dedicated to him.
Absolutely.
Even in ways that we might not expect.
Yeah, and especially at that time, when girls weren't really, involved in religious matters.
Right.
It's incredible to see Miriam's devotion even at such a young age.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what Zakariah was thinking. To witness that firsthand.
Yeah.
Must have been this incredible affirmation of Miriam's piety and Allah's favor.
Absolutely. It's this quiet miracle that really speaks volumes.
Yeah.
And then what happens, right? It has this huge impact on Zakariah himself because, he's an old man at this point. And seeing this unwavering faith in someone so young, it's inspiring.
It gives him hope.
Right.
Because after that, he prays for a child, even though it seems impossible at his age.
Yeah.
And of course, he's blessed with Yahya, who also becomes a prophet.
Yeah.
It's this domino effect.
Yeah.
All starting from one woman's incredible act of faith.
Exactly. And, I think this brings us to a really important theme of this deep dive, this ripple effect of intention. Miriam's mother's dedication wasn't just about Miriam. It actually set off this chain of events that touched so many lives and ultimately impacted the course of history.
It's mind-boggling when you think about it. One person's choice, made with such pure intention and faith, created this chain reaction that led to the birth of prophets.
It really is incredible. And this is just the beginning of Miriam's story. Her journey really is a testament to the power of faith and sacrifice, and how one person's dedication can echo through generations.
Yeah, and it makes you think about the power of even just like small acts and how they can have these huge impacts that we don't even realize.
Absolutely.
We might not all be raising prophets,
Right.
but we can all strive to live with that same level of intention and dedication
Yeah.
to a
Yeah.
purpose that's bigger than ourselves.
Exactly.
So I think it's time to take a quick break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll continue to explore the story of Miriam's mother and all the powerful lessons that we can learn from her.
Sounds good. And this is where it gets even more powerful. You know, we have the angels announcing that Allah has chosen and purified Miriam above all women.
Wow, that's a big statement.
Yeah.
Like, foreshadowing her destiny becoming the mother of Prophet Isa, Jesus. But even before that, it really highlights like her character and how her upbringing shaped her.
Absolutely. It really shows the power of that sacrifice that Miriam's mother made. You know, by dedicating her to Allah's service, it created this environment where Miriam could really cultivate her spirituality and her piety, which ultimately led to this incredible recognition.
It's interesting, too, because this story is not just about Miriam. It's also about Zakariah.
Yeah.
And how he's impacted by witnessing Miriam's faith. Like his prayer for a child, even though it seemed impossible, really shows the power of inspiration.
Yeah.
Like how one person's dedication can really ignite that faith in another.
It's beautiful. It reminds us that like our actions can have these unintended consequences on the people around us. Miriam's faith, nurtured by her mother's sacrifice, becomes this catalyst for Zakariah's own miracle. It speaks to how interconnected our spiritual journeys really are.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah,
Miriam's devotion kind of creates this ripple effect that elevates everyone around her.
exactly. And this brings us back to something you mentioned earlier about the equality of spiritual worth in Islam. Miriam's story is a perfect example of that. Her path, even though it was so different from what was expected of women at the time,
Right.
it's no less significant or impactful.
Yeah, it really challenges how we define success and worth,
Right.
both for ourselves and for the people that we mentor. It's a reminder that true success comes from aligning our intentions and our actions with a higher purpose, regardless of what society expects or those traditional roles.
Exactly. Miriam's mother didn't try to force her daughter into this predefined mold. She entrusted her to a path that was unique to her strengths and ultimately led to her fulfilling her divine purpose.
And that act of faith led to so many blessings that touched countless lives. It's like a powerful testament to the impact that one single person can have.
It's humbling, right? To think that one act of dedication driven by pure intention can spark this incredible chain reaction. It reminds us that we never really know the full extent of our influence.
This story also highlights that Islamic principle, that goodness comes from pure intentions.
Yep.
It's not just about the actions themselves, but the motivation behind them.
Exactly. Actions are judged by those underlying intentions. And if our intentions are pure, seeking to please Allah and contribute to something bigger than ourselves, our actions carry much more weight and have that lasting impact.
As we're kind of going deeper into this story, what stands out to you as like the most powerful takeaway for the listener?
For me, it's that interconnectedness of it all. It's this beautiful tapestry where faith and sacrifice and intention and action all come together to create something really extraordinary. It highlights the impact that we can have on one another and the importance of living with purpose.
Beautifully said. And it really reinforces that idea that even small acts of dedication can have huge consequences.
Absolutely. We may not all give birth to prophets, but we can all try to live with that same level of intention and dedication to a higher purpose.
And that brings us to another really crucial element of this story, the power of dua. Sincere, heartfelt prayer. Miriam's mother's initial prayer set this whole chain of events in motion. It's like she planted this seed that grew into something beyond anything she could have imagined.
Dua is so powerful. It's this direct line of communication with the divine, where we can express our hopes and our fears and our aspirations, seek guidance and strength. And Miriam's story shows us that dua coupled with action can lead to incredible outcomes.
It's a reminder that even when things seem impossible, we should never underestimate the power of prayer.
Absolutely. And it really shows the mercy and generosity of Allah, who responds to those sincere pleas in ways that we might not expect.
So as we're wrapping up this part of our deep dive, I want to ask our listeners this. If you could dedicate your life, or even a significant part of it, to a higher purpose, what would it be? What cause or calling really resonates with you.
And what impact do you want to make on the world?
Yeah.
It's about aligning your actions with your values and striving to make a positive difference.
Because, like Miriam's story shows us, even a single act of faith and dedication can create this legacy that inspires generations to come.
Yeah.
It's amazing how this story can seem so simple at first. But then the more you look at it, the more you find all these deeper meanings, like how Miriam's mother's dedication wasn't about her. It wasn't for personal gain. It was about something so much bigger than herself.
It's a perfect example of how one act of faith can create this legacy that lasts for generations. Her sacrifice wasn't just about Miriam. It really shaped history, leading to the birth of prophets and the spread of their teachings.
It really makes you think about your own life and your own place in the world. Maybe we won't all raise prophets, but we can try to live with that same intention and dedication to something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And remember, it all started with a prayer, a dua. Miriam's mother's connection to Allah was her strength, and her intentions combined with her actions had this ripple effect that still inspires us today.
It's like a guide for living a meaningful life. We might not always see the results of our actions right away, but if our intentions are pure and we're connected to that higher purpose, we can trust that our efforts are part of something much bigger.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important lesson from this whole deep dive. The lasting impact of one person's dedication. Miriam's mother's story makes us look at our own lives and ask, what do we want to leave behind? What positive change can we make?
It's like a call to action, reminding us that we can all make a difference, no matter how small. Even a simple act of kindness done with the right intentions can have a huge impact.
Exactly. It's about living with purpose, striving to be good, and trusting that even when we can't see the whole picture, our efforts matter.
So as we finish up our exploration of Surah Ale-Imran, let's hold on to this inspiration. The story of Miriam's mother shows us the power of faith sacrifice and what it means to be truly dedicated.
May her story inspire us to live with intention, find our higher purpose, and trust in Allah's plan.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.